Well, thanks for joining me, everyone. My name is Matt Lonstine. I'm the Director of Delivery at Symmetry. We are a basis managed services and cloud hosting provider. Got into the SAP cloud game very early on, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my deck. And as part of our cloud offering, of course, power our own HANA cloud. Early entry into that as well. SUSE has been alongside of us for that ride, and want to talk a little bit about how we use SUSE Linux Enterprise Server in our cloud, what it does for us, what it can do for you, and some of the fantastic features of that OS as it pertains to HANA. Again, gave you a little bit of background on us, but we've been doing this for a long time, since 1996. Basis and HANA are in our DNA. We're SAP certified in HANA operations, cloud services, hosting services. We got into the hosting business, like I said, early on when we're really first starting to see a shift of customers from co-load and on-prem based deployments into traditional hosting, right? And a lot of our customers were getting a rough ride, honestly. These hosting providers that they were engaging early didn't really understand how to host SAP, didn't really understand how to care for and feed it. We, of course, knew how to do that very well. We had hosting experience in-house, and that's really what precipitated our foray into hosting specific for SAP workloads, and of course, eventually HANA. So roughly 2005 is when our cloud offering got off the ground. We did and still do have a focus on SAP workloads, although we host lots of other sort of ancillary systems, as you might imagine. Doesn't make sense for a lot of companies just to outsource their SAP hosting. But our gear in our cloud is really designed and configured for high-end SAP workloads, and in this case specifically for HANA. Security, flexibility, and stability, right, are a huge part of what we want to deliver to our customers as an experience in our cloud, and choosing the right operating system to deliver that is critical, right? It's not a decision that can be made trivially, and for HANA, for us, it was SUSE Linux Enterprise Server right out of the gate. We had SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP applications, which is kind of a special version of that platform geared toward SAP with its own update repository, its own packages, tuning tools that are specific to SAP, running SAP on SUSE Linux. We had that present and was pervasive throughout our cloud prior to our HANA offering, and so it was just an easy transition and a natural progression for us to use it underneath HANA in our cloud. Early on, and just in general, I saw a lot of SAP customers starting to migrate to Linux platforms really as soon as that was possible. And I've been doing this long enough to recall when only 32-bit servers were supported for Linux, that didn't last long. I think around that time, SLES 8 was out. I think that was one of the first that was certified to run NetWeaver and SAP products. SAP support and development on Linux really accelerated, and they quickly developed a strong relationship with SUSE. SUSE Linux Enterprise Server is now the de facto HANA development platform. So as I mentioned before, 2005 was when we really got our cloud off the ground and humming, and HANA came not far behind. Our HANA cloud is essentially a very large TDI deployment using HPE gear and VMware vSphere. They've been fantastic partners for us, and we've designed what we think is a rock solid and a bulletproof HANA cloud platform. But like I said, SLES was a huge piece of the puzzle. Right, all of that careful crafting and configuration is for naught if the OS isn't exactly what it needs to be for HANA. And SLES for SAP has been that for us right out of the gate. It has a proven track record for SAP workloads. I've had a lot of hands-on experience with this OS myself, and it runs fantastically under NetWeaver, a variety of databases, but really, really outstanding for HANA deployments. They have direct support and optimization for SAP and HANA, and we'll talk about some of those tools in a little bit here. Full support for virtualization, which is key for us. Simplified deployment. Our partnership with SUSE really started to take off as our HANA cloud just got bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And our use of SLEDs for SAP just really skyrocketed. We partner in a number of ways now, and we view that as strategic to our success. So we talked a little bit about the additional software package and update channel. You can pull those packages with the YAS tool, with Zipper, with SUSE Manager, however it is that you do package management. But some fantastic things to take advantage by way of that special update channel for SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP. SUSE and SAP have also kind of partnered to deliver this unified support platform. You can actually engage SUSE when need be by following SAP's support escalation process, right? A SUSE Linux issue, which is deemed appropriate to be looked at by their engineers, can actually be moved to their support people by way of SAP in an OSS message, and you're probably all familiar with that process. The specific and performance and optimization features I discussed, right? And we're just kind of giving a nod to a few of them here. HAE, the high availability extension, which you might be familiar with. In this context, a great way to truly cluster HANA and automate failover of a HANA database as part of an application and database layer cluster. Kernel page cache limiting and some of their installation workflow are some other things that kind of set this OS apart. I will talk a little bit about the page cache limit feature because it's really relevant to the HANA discussion in terms of performance and SUSE's understanding of how critical it is to sort of tune the OS and make it a tool underneath HANA. Fantastic tools, and ones that my basis guys and our engineers use all the time are SAP Tune and SAP Conf. These are command line based tools that are essentially designed to simplify a lot of the meticulous tuning that's required at the OS level when you deploy SUSE Linux Enterprise Server underneath SAP and underneath HANA. That can be a lot of kernel parameter tuning. We talked about the page cache. There are some elements that need to go into the bootloader config file, right? A lot of things to consider. It's a meticulous process, a labor of love for us, but these tools do a fantastic job of automating a lot of that tuning. What you can do is AIM SAP Tune is the more recent of the two, I believe available as of SLES 12.2, and its predecessor was SAP Conf. Both do similar things, although SAP Tune a little more optimized and probably a little more full-featured. But you can use the SAP Tune tool to aim it at a pre-configured tuning profile, right? A tuning profile for S4 HANA, standalone HANA database, MaxDB, NetWeaver, and again, all of that meticulous kernel tuning, file system tuning, bootloader config, all of that is encapsulated in these tuning profiles that you can automate by using SAP Tune. You can also use that tool actually to implement the tunables and recommendations from specific notes. You can aim that directly at a pretty large catalog of OSS notes and implement the tunable recommendations in an automated fashion using these tools. It's a big part of what allows my basis guys and our engineers to be quick and efficient, right? There are a lot of things, a lot of technical particulars that I want to bake into our HANA VMs, but you can go a little too far with that, right? By getting too crazy, maybe too over the top with the number of things that you're trying to bake into a HANA template, that can result in a lot of administration when it comes to, keeping that catalog up to date. Some of those things I would rather have applied at the engineer basis level, and these two tools allow my team to do that really quickly. The page cache limit. So, for those of you that are Linux geeks, you'll notice that as you look at the free memory on a running Linux server over time, especially one that's running SAP, you see virtually, There we go. Mic still on? You guys hear me? Okay. You'll see that virtually no memory is free after that server's been running for some time. That's because Linux takes memory when it's available to use as essentially a file system cache. When you're running HANA, in particular, on a Linux VM or a bare metal server for that matter, that page cache can compete for memory with applications. In the HANA world, that's obviously definitely something you want to avoid, right? What the kernel page cache limit does, or the way it's implemented, is in the form of 2 kernel parameters, right? That essentially tell the Linux kernel and the operating system that it can only utilize up to a specific amount of memory for the page cache. That it's not competing for memory with HANA, it's not competing for memory with the application, right? And although we are talking about HANA in this case, this is particularly useful for Linux servers that are running Java applications, because that heap garbage collection process, when it bumps up against an issue with the page cache limit, can be really, really problematic, cause severe performance issues. So this is a fantastic optimization, and I love how SUSE has an eye toward SAP optimization and HANA optimization when they engineer their operating systems. Live patching is another fantastic thing that we take advantage of. Again, if you've been around Linux for a long time, you know that this is kind of a holy grail when it comes to Linux. The ability to apply a kernel patch to a running system without having to reboot, right? And there have been forms of this technology, tools out there that do this. In my opinion, not in as efficient a way, certainly as SUSE's tool, which is called kgraft. It's one that they developed on their own. What I love about kgraft and what I love about live patching is that the kernel processes and threads never stop. With other tools that did this in the past, there was some interruption to kernel processes and threads, right? As that newly introduced code, that newly introduced kernel code and or modules had to be worked into that running kernel. SUSE takes a kind of a proprietary approach to introducing that code into the running kernel in a way that is not disruptive, there's no lapse in continuity. A fantastic product, especially when you think about using it in the context of HANA, right, where rebooting those VMs is painful. Having to load, well, not only is it disruptive in and of itself, but especially for a large HANA instance, loading all of that data back into memory can take a long time, right? Kind of defeats the whole purpose of HANA in and of itself, right? So this is a fantastic thing to use in support of HANA instances. I love this, my customers love it, and it's available as of SLES 12.2. Security, OS security is a big consideration for us, right? Your applications and your database, your environment are only as secure as your operating system. SUSE recognizes that. They have several security certifications, and you can go out online, take a look at these, research them. It's a well optimized and can be a well hardened tool with some fantastic direction, frankly, from their team. From their engineering team, has published a lot of great white papers on this. The YAST tool, which can be kind of a quasi command line tool, there's a graphical version of this tool, can be used to implement some of the specific security elements. Most of these are probably better implemented, at the command line. Some things that you do kind of have to, some down in the weeds, bits and bytes kinds of things that you certainly want to think about doing in addition to just the work that you can do with YAST. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is the SUSE security checker, which is really a set of shell scripts at the end of the day, right, that are scheduled in cron, run daily, weekly, monthly. Give you an example of what some of these shell scripts do. One of them actually runs John the Ripper against the SU password and the Etsy shadow file, where your OS level credentials are stored. Maybe you guys are familiar with those. If that tool actually manages to crack a password, of course you're notified that you're not adhering to strong password standards, right? Just kind of an example of the depth that these scripts go to, right? Such an easy thing to implement as well. A lot of thought has gone into that. SUID and SGID file and directory checks, obviously, SUIDs are kind of a nasty thing to have on files in your Linux OS. Some databases and some SAP applications make use of these, but you don't want these just sort of tumbling around, inside your OS somewhere where you might not be aware of them. The SAP HANA firewall, I think, is a really cool innovation as well. We don't tend to use this a lot, but for some customers, this is a great firewall solution. It's essentially a HANA-aware firewall. Is pre-configured with all of the standard HANA communication and service ports. You can define your own HANA services, has multi-tenant protection capability. Again, this is an OS-based firewall based on IP tables, which you may be familiar with. IP tables has been, the de facto firewall in Linux for quite a while. But what SUSE has done is really kind of crafted it around HANA and made it HANA smart, so to speak. Interface and service mapping. Something to consider if you are kind of in a unique scenario where you don't have HANA, behind a larger, more fulsome firewall. If you have to expose it in some way, or if you've got some, really meticulous and particular compliance standards that might mandate an OS level firewall, you can feel confident in deploying this in front of HANA. So high availability is a hot topic in the HANA world these days, and achieving HA in the HANA world can be done a couple of different ways. If you're running it virtually or you're running it, on VMware, you can use VMware HA. That's the right amount of HA for some, but it's not the fully automated failover HA that you might be used to with other application and database clusters, right? SUSE HA is a way to get that with HANA, and it's essentially a fully fledged clustering suite, right? That in this case wraps around HANA native system replication. So think of that system replication process as almost a resource of the cluster. With the fencing and the heartbeat capabilities of SUSE HAE, right, you can automate the failover from one HANA node to another by way of using that system replication to keep them constantly synchronized. A lot of advancements in this, and I'm seeing them all the time. SUSE does have their own proprietary agents that go along with this, discovery agents. All the things that are part and parcel to database clustering. You can use this actually at the application layer too, right? The same technology that you're wrapping around HANA native system replication to make an auto failover cluster at that level can actually be applied at the application layer as well, right? The OnQ server can be, in the ABAP world, can be, a cluster resource, right? Just the way you would imagine with with other clustering products that you might have seen. But in my experience, and there are a couple of other products out there that do this, frankly, this is the one we use in our cloud. It's worked very well for us. So as we wrap up, we have a huge presence of SLES for SAP in our cloud. And it's essentially the only operating system that we run in our HANA cloud. From a support standpoint, from a variety standpoint in terms of the HANA in our cloud, if it runs on HANA, we have it. 1610 data marts, multi-tenant database containers, which you may or may not be familiar with, getting really mature, of super cool technology that's gotten much, much better in HANA 2.0. A way to sort of run maybe some of your less intensive mission critical workloads on HANA and remain cost effective and efficient using MDC, HANA 1 and 2, and a really rapidly rising number of HA deployments as well. So the partnership with SUSE has been fantastic for us, one that we really value. I love this product. I actually, in a former life, was an engineer and worked with this product a lot. And so, when I speak for its value, that comes from experience. Thanks for joining me today. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to address them.